Hey, what's up, everybody? This is an open discussion with C3 Films. My name is Chris, and this is.
Cheryl.
And today we're going to be talking about the Netflix show, The Fall of the House of Usher. So, if you haven't seen it, it's on Netflix right now. We are going into spoiler territory here, so you have been warned. If that bothers you, go check it out on Netflix. Come back and see what we have to say. We are only going to be talking about the first episode, though. We won't be going past there, but spoiler alert for at least the first episode of the show. So, let's go ahead and we'll jump right into this. Me and Cheryl both love Hill House. We both, in general, like Midnight Mass, except for the ending for me. And so and I have seen other things by Mike Flanagan that I didn't even know he was a part of at one point, like Oculus, another movie that I loved. So Mike Flanagan has gotten around. And when I heard that he was coming up with a new show, the first thing I thought to myself was, I'm going to be watching it because I like horror, and in general, I have liked what he's done. I didn't like Bly Manor that much, but it was also meant to be a different type of show. He didn't want Bly Manor to just be a repeat of Hill House, so it was done very differently, and the structure of it was different. So, which is fine. But when I saw like the Fall of the House of Usher trailer, I was like, I have no idea what this is gonna be. That trailer was wild to me, and then I only watched it once, so I didn't even remember. And so when it came out, I was ready to watch it and to just see what it would be about. And for me, once again, it depends on the ending, but so far, the show has not disappointed. I have seen past the first episode. I've almost finished it, but in reference to even just the first episode, I think it's intriguing the way that it starts because we start the show right off the bat with the knowledge that most of the characters die. And I thought that was very, very odd because I thought that like it would be more engaging to not know who was going to die. But they kind of did something similar like that with Hill House too, because we started knowing that the youngest child died or something like that. Um, and so we start going into this mystery where we then go back in time, or no, we got I know technically we're going forward in time because we're having this conversation with the the main head of the household. I want to say Ronald Usher. I forget his full name, but the oldest Usher, male Usher, and he's talking with a journalist, and they're having a discussion, and he's telling him the story about how they got here, and I see you like wondering about the timeline and stuff.
No, I think his name is Rick or Ron
Rick, Ron, yeah.
Ron, and
Did
then
I say Ronald?
oh well, I don't remember. Yeah, look it up. And then he's not talking to a journalist. He's talking to the DA.
CTA, that's right. You know what? As far I always forget because in that flashback, I always was thinking to myself he was a journalist. But yes, you're right. He's talking to the DA because they have a case against them, and because they run off like is it a pharmaceutical company? They have like they have like pills and stuff, and these pills are like bad for people, and he's been coming after them for a long time, and he tells them that he knows an informant that is within the family, which this is what we find out later on because this is like something that happens earlier when all the family members are alive, and that will lead to like other things that are happening. But the general framing of the show is that we are sitting down with these two men sitting across from each other as one is being told the story of what led us to this moment.
I gotta tell you, I was getting. I mean, it was a little like scary for me,
Mm-hmm.
but it did remind me a lot of Knives Out because you're getting like this guy. He's like a detective, I guess, pretty much. Like he's the DA. He's trying to solve this crime,
Mm-hmm.
and he's interviewing someone, and that person is telling them the story of their perspective of the, you know, the events that happened.
Right.
So from that, I thought it was interesting. And then they go back and forth in the conversation, and then you see the trial. This all happens in the first episode. And you get information from the trial that there's like an informant that's in the family. And I'm like, what if the informant is the main character? But then there's this whole other like mystery thing that's happening with like, so he starts off by talking about his mom and how like they thought she died and she was like a woman of God and everything, and that's kind of what ended up making her die because she didn't want to
Well,
see a
because she didn't.
doctor.
Yeah, she didn't believe in like medicine or like
Yeah.
taking. Yeah, she was on
Yeah.
like yeah.
So they bury her thinking that she's dead, but then she like crawls out and she's kind of like a zombie, and like I don't know if she was really dead or not, or if this is like a ghost thing. And then she kills her boss, who was kind of like known to be a jerk. Like they showed scenes of him being a jerk to them, to the family. And then I was like, is he like their actual father? Okay, thanks.
Yeah.
um, and so there's that weird connection, and then they meet someone when he and his sister get a little older. They meet someone at a bar, the bartender, who plays the mom in Hill House, and they're trying to do something, or like they had just come from doing something and they're using their presence at that bar as an alibi.
Yeah, and we suspect that they might have killed somebody because of how they're talking as if they want to make sure that no one that people see them there, and they want to make sure that they have, like you said, yeah, that they have an alibi, and they're nervous about like the cops looking for them.
Yeah, and then the last weird thing that happens is at the very end of the episode when he sees like this scary like clown dude in the car that he's supposed to get. Yeah.
I forgot about that.
Well, I hope you remember it.
Oh man, I forgot about that. Ooh. Oh boy.
And
Yeah,
then
that
he
one got
kind of
me.
like faints, and then he like is like laying on his back, and then he sees like this crow over him, and he says something like it's happening, like
It's time. It's time or
yeah.
something.
And he also says something at the beginning of like she's here. So I don't know who the she is, because I was like, at first I thought like, oh, it's the mom, but now I'm like, oh, it's the bartender, because we see like flashes of the bartender. So right now what I'm getting is an interesting story that I want to know more about, and there's all these other weird things happening and I don't know how they're related. So it is really interesting. I am a little confused, but not too confused to not want to watch more, but too scared to want to watch more, because there
Well,
were like that one scene where
see, so here's the funny thing, because as we've been sitting here discussing and describing what the show is about and what's happening, we actually haven't talked about anything that's really horror based. It actually sounds like we're talking about like a thriller or a mystery more so than anything else, and that's what makes the story so intriguing, because it is what it is. There isn't. There's almost a question of whether or not some of these things are supernatural. Like you said with the mom, you were like, was she actually dead, or is this a ghost thing? And at first, it's played as like a question, right? But then, as time progresses, they realize it's seen more as a thing of our mom wasn't actually dead, and she crawled out, but with the last of her strength, she strangled our father, who did nothing for us. And they even say, like, because there's a moment when she's sick, the children go to him to ask him for something because they know that he's their father, and they're like, hey, we haven't never asked you for anything, and she hasn't either, but we need you to help her. And then he's just like, he's a jerk, and it's like, I'm not gonna do that. And he's the one that owns Fortunato, or is that like the CEO or something like that. And so he's a man of power, right? And the whole thing is that their mom was his secretary, and this guy has a wife, doesn't have any kids, but these are his kids, and he's just not having it. So she goes when she comes back and she kills him, and you're thinking, and then she dies. So they lose both their father and mother in like the same like couple of minutes. And there's a lot of it where you're wondering, like, okay, is this something that has supernatural elements? Because even but there are moments like when you see when you see Roderick, by the way, is the guy's name, Roderick Usher, and the guy he's talking to is August, where they're having a conversation where they're sitting down, and it's so good. Like there's not any music. You just kind of hear like I think the fire going, and it's kind of quiet. And Roderick makes a comment that where he's asking like why, or no, Augie's asking like why are we talking about your mom, and Roderick says, oh, because something, and then she's right behind you, and they show a shot of August, and you're like, what? There's nothing behind him. But August is like, I'm not gonna turn around. There's nothing behind me. You're just trying to control me. And then Roderick says, okay, suit yourself. And then when they cut back to August, you see a body move behind him that was always there, but it was still so you didn't know it was a body. And it's like there's moments like that. It's like it's not jump out of your seat scary, but it's creepy, and it reminded me of like the Haunting of Hill House where they hid those ghosts all over like frames and stuff where you weren't even sure if you were seeing a ghost, and I just really liked that.
All right, continue.
So yeah,
You
and
want to check
like
too?
no, I'm not looking. I'm not turning around. I refuse. If it's there, it'll just keep staying there. But and so but there's this other little mystery of like what his sister Madeline is doing, because when August gets there, the basement door is open and they hear some sounds coming from the basement. He says, "What's going on? What is that?" And the guy says, "Oh, that's Madeline. She's doing her own thing or whatever." And so, but we don't know. We don't know what that is. What's happening down there? And then we don't know what they did that night when they ran into the bar. We don't know who this woman is that they talked to that seems to almost know what they did. She doesn't never say that she knows what she did, but there's like something about her that feels off, where she feels like she knows more than she's letting on. And then even with Roderick, when he's at the funeral, he looks over his shoulder and he sees what looks like a woman in a mask, and then she disappears. But then he sees images of his dead children. So, and it's like, are these ghosts? Because other people turn around and they don't see them. So, are these ghosts? Are these like figments of his imagination? We don't know. So, there's a lot of intrigue that's going on, and then when we go backwards and then we start meeting these characters and seeing how the story progresses, I think the characters are all interesting too, but these people are jerks. They're like actually jerks. They are terrible people to the point where whenever these people bring in a significant other into the family, that family member has to like sign like an NDA or all these other like documents, and it's ridiculous. It's crazy.
Yeah. And that's also why it reminds me of Knives Out, because you have this like rich family with all these kids that are all about like wanting to make sure that they're on the will and everything like that. Like they're spoiled brats and something's going on. And we don't, it's almost like a whodunit, because they're trying to figure out who the traitor is, who the informant is. And then they're all also like money hungry.
Yeah, and that's the other mystery, right? Is that so we want to know who the informant is, but we also know that all these kids are going to be dead by I guess the end of the season, right? So the question is then how did they die? Were they murdered? Did they kill them? I think Roderick says that I'm going to tell you how I killed my children, but August says you couldn't have because it was all accidents. But then again, it's like how do you have six deaths of family members within 2 weeks? All
Yeah.
accidental.
He didn't
So
really say he didn't really say that he killed them. He just said
how do you say it?
he said that he's confessing and that he's responsible.
He's responsible. That's right. That's
Yeah.
right. So yeah, the question is, well, how is he responsible? So, like, if there's anything that this show has taught me, or that Mike Flanagan has taught me, is that like when we saw Midnight Mass, I won't spoil that, but in Midnight Mass, when it starts, you're wondering what is going on, and then you get hints and clues and you start to really figure out, like you can figure out what's happening before the end of the episode, before the last episode of the show, because you start to really understand. And it's something that is based in like a regular known horror element that you've seen before, but is done in kind of a more unique or a different way.
Mm-hmm.
But it's something that you're familiar with. You just don't know you're familiar with it right away. It just gets there. And I'm wondering if for this, it's the same kind of thing where it's something that we're familiar with from other types of lore, but we just don't know what it is yet. And so we're kind of seeing how it plays out with this particular take on it.
I think Mike Flanagan needs a hug.
Yeah, probably. For real though. Um, One other thing, I don't know how much you see him in the first episode, but I want to at least bring it up. One of the other things I want to talk about is Mark Hamill.
Oh yeah, the lawyer. Yeah.
Yes, I love
He's
Mark Hamill in
good.
this. He's
Yeah.
really good,
You
and he only gets better as you keep watching him.
Yeah, you don't really see him a ton, but for like the little bit that he's in, I'm like, wow, I would never have thought, oh, look, Skywalker.
Right. And even like how he does his voice, he sounds different than
Mm-hmm.
how we normally hear Mark Hamill sound. And he sounds like a bastard.
Yeah.
He sounds like a bastard lawyer.
He does, and like he acts like it too because like during the whole time that the DA is talking, he's like playing a crossword
A
puzzle
crossword puzzle.
because he's like that cocky, like I don't need to pay attention or anything. Like I'm just chilling here and getting free money for my time.
Mhm.
And then something happens, and he's just like objection,
Mhm.
sustained. And then when the DA does say something about the informant, he's like, "Man, now I have to work." And then he'll like get up and then they like have to like approach the judge
The
and
bench.
everything, the
Yeah.
bench. Yeah. So, yeah, I mean it was very little, and he was at the house too at the dinner, giving the
Mhm.
NDA out and everything. So they're like everyone gets pinned.
Right? Yeah, Pimmed. That's what they call him. The Pim Reaper. Like what a name. Oh man. So yeah, I have seen more than Cheryl, and I'm not gonna spoil anything, but I will say that Mark Hamill is actually one of my favorite characters in the show. I love his performance, and I like all the characters. And some of these people are people that we've seen in other Mike Flanagan shows. The One of the brothers is one of the main characters from Midnight Mass. One of the daughters, we've seen her as one of the other daughters in Hill House, and she was also in Bly Manor. So I think that was Camille, and then
The
I
mom,
think
the
yes,
bartender's the mom in Hill House.
exactly. So yeah, and there's a couple of new faces, but there's like a mixture. It's like half and half. Half are returning alumni from Mike Flanagan works. And it almost makes it feel like they just do anthologies with him, almost kind of like American Horror Story or something. But it's really
Mm-hmm.
cool to see them, and then we get to see new characters. And another actor I really like in this is Bruce Greenwood. I really love, I've always liked him as an actor, but I really love him in this show. Like every time they go back to the conversation between him and August, I'm so intrigued. And it is just two people in a room talking. It is really just that. Two people in a room in a fireplace, two seats across from each other, having a drink and talking. But the the mystery about like their relationship, the things that are happening, and like just the way that his presence that he has on screen just always gets me to just want to listen. I want to listen to him talk. It's probably something about his voice as well. And a little bit of trivia for you, but Bruce Greenwood has voiced Batman in a few animated movies, and maybe even an animated show or two. But I know Bruce Greenwood has been the voice of Batman in some of the old, like in before the New 52 animated stuff. Maybe even in there. Point is, Bruce Greenwood has voiced Batman in the animated sense at some point in time, and and who is his close associate in Mr. Pym? It's Mark Hamill, who has done the voice of the Joker. So whenever they're both together, I'm just like, we have Batman and the Joker on screen together in live action. I love this. This is
That's
amazing.
cool. That's
So yeah,
yeah.
absolutely great. But that's not to take away from anybody else. I think the other actors are also really good. I just think that for me, the performances that and the I don't know this actress's name, but whoever plays Madeline as a teenager or as a 20-year-old in the past, she is intriguing as well. Like whenever she's on screen, I'm always, and Madeline as a character is just interesting, whether she's young or old. But like the young version of her is like it really feels like a, a no craps given kind of person who and is just so self assured. Like she seems like she's the one that is able to keep them out of trouble. Like it's her plans that he has to follow through on, that Roderick has to follow through on. And she just there's just something about her where she is another character that just knows a lot more than she lets on, and also just kind of commands moments whenever she's a part of them.
Yeah, she does seem a little bit like the mastermind, even like as
Mm-hmm.
kids. She just
As kids
seemed
too.
more dominant than her brother. And, as an adult, he seems fine, but throughout all the stages of their life, Madeline definitely seems like she's the one in charge. So, um, yeah, I don't know. I still have a lot of figuring out to do in terms of like what's going on with the show and what's up with all these characters and stuff, but it's gonna have to wait. It's just hard to watch, and it's not very scary, but it's scary enough to like,
Yeah.
give you like the heebie-jeebies. It's not like Midnight Mass where there's just like some jump scares,
Mm-hmm.
um but it's not like so terrifying with all these ghosts and stuff, like Hill House. So it is kind
Yes.
of in between, but I would still say it leans more towards Hill House.
I when I first started watching, I was thinking it's not that bad. As I kept watching more episodes, there are things that will legitimately make you jump. Where I'm sitting there and I'm just like, oh my gosh! So that does exist, and there's us. This show just does creepy very very good. So there's gonna be unsettling moments. There's a plenty of those, and one in particular that after I finished watching the episode, I was sitting in my room with the lights off before I would watch them before I go to bed, which I don't recommend, by the way. I just the only time of the day that I could watch them, and I would like literally be sitting there with my hands on my head, like looking down in like the fetal position, like, what did I just watch? Oh my gosh, this show is so messed up. What the heck?
This
But
show?
this show, yes,
Oh,
this
I don't want
show.
to watch it.
But at the same time, I was just like, but I gotta see more. I gotta understand what happens because it's very good storytelling. And it's not, and the moments I'm talking to you aren't even necessarily like strictly horror based. There's just like some events that happen, like almost watching like some of the Korean movies we watch where stuff
Ugh.
happens and you're kind of like, oh my God. So,
Yeah, they need a
I,
hug too.
right? So I highly recommend the show. It's very enjoyable to me, and I think that if you like horror, it'll scratch the itch a little bit. It's not like pure supernatural horror where you're going to get that all the time, but there are elements in there, and there's a mystery to it that is, I think, something that's going to keep you wanting to watch more to see what the answer is. And regardless, it's clear that there is something that may not be based in the realm of traditional understanding or reality that is happening somewhere in the background, but it is very much that where it is in the background.
And none of that made sense. But I got it when you were talking about Midnight Mass.
Point is, the point is, long story short, there's a chance that there's something supernatural going on, but it's not always 100% clear if it is supernatural that's going on
I feel like it has to
until
be.
later.
Like the nature of like these kind of shows that Mike Flanagan does, it it is gonna be supernatural in my opinion. Whether it's like bigger, like a big thing or a small thing, where it's still like for Midnight Mass, it was a reality. It was supernatural, like the show,
Mm-hmm.
but it was reality for everyone, the same reality for everyone.
Right.
In Hill House, it was not. Some people were like hallucinating, and there's definitely like ghost stuff happening and all of that. So that's definitely supernatural, but not for everyone. It wasn't reality for
Right.
everyone. Um,
Right.
so
I see what
I
you're saying.
Yeah, so I think in this case it's going to be similar to Hill House where it is supernatural but not for everyone.
Right. Or maybe it will be
Some
for
people
everyone.
have lost their marbles and you know what? Just spoil it for me. I don't want to see it anymore. It's too
Nope, I'm
scary.
not spoiling it.
Just
You
tell
have
me what
to.
I
You have to
just
watch it.
I just
It's a
gonna
good story. It's a good
Wikipedia.
story. Nope, please don't. Worth the experience, y'all.
Or you
But
can tell
that's
me
everything.
like what time slot, like time stamps to
Else on the
like
scary
to
stuff.
so that I can be like prepared and like not look.
I'll say this: be prepared every time they're having a conversation with between Roderick and August. Those are
That's the
usually the times you're
whole.
gonna see it.
That's the whole. Ugh.
I know what to
Anyways,
tell you.
and yeah, because they're in that like freaking house, but I bet it's the Hill House that they're in. But anyways,
So yeah,
there's one more thing I just want to touch on, and that's just like the reasoning behind the success of these shows that Mike Flanagan has been putting out.
hmm
And I think like just from what I've learned and just from what I've seen, I think a lot of it has to do with like, well, one, he's inventive, he's creative, and not without the help of his team. And that's pretty
of
clear
course.
that he always works with the same people, not like every
hmm
time, but he has a bond with the people that he works with. And
Yeah.
that's always like a great way to be successful is by working with the same people. It's the same concept. Like when you're working at work for like any job and you get along with the people that you work with, you're gonna do well at work.
hmm
It's just the difference with this is that it's always like from project to project, but then when you're working with the same people that you like enjoy working with and work well with, you're gonna come out with a really good product because you already know how to work together. You're not learning how to work with them at the beginning.
True.
So
Yeah, and they clearly enjoy working with him because they keep coming back. It's not like they only came back once.
yeah, and there's a lot of directors and writers and groups of people that just always enjoy working together, and you'll see that like if you look at some of the best directors out there, you will see that they tend to work with the same people, and in this case, it's really evident because he uses the same actors all the time.
hmm
So
Yeah,
I think
absolutely.
Cassidy's did that too.
Yeah, and
Cassidy's used the same actors.
Christopher Nolan does it too. So, yeah. So, no, I'm excited. I still have one more episode to finish, and then I'll be able to tell you what I think about the series overall. We'll see if it can stick the landing. But so far, for episode 1 through episode 7, I have enjoyed the entire ride. So, but that's what we thought about the fall of the House of Usher. Have you guys been watching it? Are you interested in it? Have you seen Mike Flanagan's other works like Hill House, Midnight Mass? Which of his works are your favorite? Whatever you thought about that and more, comment below. Let us know. And right down there, if you give us a like, share, and subscribe. Even if you don't, though, I have been Chris, and this has been
Cheryl, and I'm standing right behind you.